Well, hi there. I was just reading up a little bit on synovial joints. Come with me into the anatomy lab so we can learn a little bit more. So, generally speaking, there are three types of joints in your body: fibrous, cartilaginous, and synovial. In this video, though, we're just going to talk about synovial joints.
So, as with any other joint, synovial joints are made of two articulating surfaces. These articular surfaces have a lining of hyaline cartilage between them. Encapsulating the joint is the joint capsule. The innermost lining of the joint capsule is the synovial membrane, which secretes synovial fluid. Here we see the synovial membrane. And here is where synovial fluid runs through, creating a nice cushion in the joint and between the articular surfaces. To add stability to these joints and movement, we have ligaments and muscles, which will cross the joint and act upon both articulations.
One way to remember the structure of a synovial joint is to think of a jelly donut. Okay, so looking at this, we're going to pretend that these two green straws are the articulating bones, and the bread part of the donut, the outside bread part, is the joint capsule. Now, if we look inside the joint capsule, you can see that we have the jelly in the inside, which is like the synovial fluid, and the inner bread part, like right there, would be the synovial membrane that secretes the synovial fluid. There are 6 different subclassifications of synovial joints. They include hinge, ball and socket, condyloid, pivot, saddle, and plane or gliding joint. Let's take a look at some examples of each of these.
Example of a hinge joint would be the knee. It does flexion and extension along a single axis. Another example of a hinge joint is the elbow.
The hip is an excellent example of a ball and socket joint. This allows for a wide range of movement. The shoulder is another excellent example. An example of a condyloid joint is the wrist.
An example of a pivot joint is between the radius and the ulna during the actions of pronation and supination.
Another example of a pivot joint is of the axis and atlas.
An example of a saddle joint is the thumb. An example of a sliding joint is that between the carpals
And the tarsal bones.
Another example of a sliding joint is between two vertebrae.